Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Universe Podcast. Today we are coming towards the end. We're talking about episode 5 of the Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi show with myself, Paul Hoppy, and Ashley Coffin. All that and more after commercial break we have no control over. Welcome back. I'm Matthew Fox, they them pronouns.
I'm Ashley Coffin.
And I'm Paul Hoppy.
All right, folks, we're almost to the end. Episode 5, the Reva Strikes Back. What'd you think?
Oh, I loved it. I really liked this episode.
I really hated how in this episode there were just so few things that I want to complain about. No,
don't pander.
A little slow roll. I really enjoyed it. By far my favorite episode of the series, and really the only one that I have no significant quibbles with.
Yeah, I would say that too. And I'll just jump right in by starting with, I remember when we were having a discussion, someone on the other podcast, the other episode on Kenobi I did, where I was talking with the Hayashis, and we're talking about this idea of would Reva, have a redemption arc of some kind. Mm-hmm. And I was saying that to some extent I liked her being evil, I liked her being badass, I didn't want her to sort of turn away from the dark side. And I feel like, I'm curious what your all thoughts are, I think we got the best of both worlds. Because I think what this is saying is she is not working for Vader. She has never been working for Vader. She is following her own ambitions, which include revenge against Vader. And she's willing to do anything and kill anyone who gets in her way of that. So she is helping our hero, but she is still very much using the dark side of the Force. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay, that's the perfect way to thread the needle that I wasn't even expecting and that I'm really here for.
I agree. I feel like I was pretty happy that I kind of got the story that I wanted, because I definitely remember saying on like, oh, she's definitely going to have a hero turn, but I didn't want it to be just full hero. So I kind of like, but has she actually used the dark side?
I mean,
she's done some.
I haven't seen her do any like powers.
I think she's just full on dark side. Like,
okay.
I think it's. I would not describe this as a hero turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's using her anger for the purposes of vengeance. Like she's,
and that's what we wanted.
Yeah, she's a dark side Force user, right? Yeah. Who was going to be a Jedi, right? She was a Padawan, or not a Padawan. She was a youngling, I guess. Mm-hmm. And she got so angry as a little kid, she became a dark side Force user and got recruited by the Empire and was just plotting her revenge the entire time. And so, yeah, I'd say she is, I think, a perfect, I'm always looking for examples of this. I think she's an anti-villain. Like, right? Yeah. She wants to do something that most of the heroes are like, yes, good, killed Vader, right? Good. But she does not want to do it for heroic reasons. She just wants to do it out of pure vengeance. And I mean, yeah, there's stories that are basically just about vengeance, and you can just be like, well, that's basically the hero, like, Desperado or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. The Punisher.
Right, yeah, the Punisher. But, like, here, she doesn't seem to care about collateral damage, right? She seems sort of, like, blinded by the dark side of the Force or by her thirst for vengeance. And, I feel like this was a very satisfying sort of delivery on wanting her to be something more than just like a random inquisitor, but also kind of feeling like if she has this big change of heart hero turn, I felt like that was going to feel like very manufactured and not genuine from what we'd seen so far. And this just, to me, like delivers really well on what her character could be. My only complaint is not with this episode, but with the structure of the series, where I think this was meant to play as some big reveal, but to me it just seemed like the least surprising thing ever. And I feel like the earlier episodes would have been more enjoyable for me anyway if they'd shown her backstory in the beginning and then didn't play this like it was supposed to be some big twist that we weren't supposed to see coming.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
I can see that. I think I enjoyed her a lot more early on, so I found this turn at this point in time very satisfying. But I definitely can see why if you weren't sort of drawn in by her early, it wouldn't. And yeah, and just to go to that question, like, is she dark side? I think like we have a couple of specific powers like force choking that have been kind of defined as dark side, although like I mean Luke uses them in Jabba's palace.
Right.
I think it's much more kind of the Paul, I think you kind of hit the two key points. Is one is her power comes from her emotion. You know, her rage, her anger, her fear at times. Like all those things make her more powerful, which is very much dark side. But also that whole, she doesn't care about collateral damage. Like, there is not a part of her, I think, that would have felt in any way bad if she had to torture or even kill Leia, this 10-year-old girl, to get what she wants. And to me, that's like, I think if it had happened last episode, if she'd been like, oh, I can't really hurt you, you're a cute 10-year-old, I would feel very differently.
Totally. That would be a very different story.
I just thought it was strange that we didn't see her. Like she didn't force push anything that I can remember. It was just like the lightsaber the whole time.
Oh.
I can't think of any time when she actually used the force.
She used the force very little overall, I will say. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Because you think he would have used it against Vader. Push him right back.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she tried, but just like Vader,
True.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the fact that she couldn't force use his mind. She couldn't force use to read. Like she did use the force to read the mind of the fake Jedi guy.
Right.
She couldn't break Leia.
Yeah, she couldn't break Leia.
She
But that must be a thing. Is I mean, like maybe part of why Vader like kept her in the inner circle as an Inquisitor, even though he knew that she was probably going to betray him, was because he also wasn't that afraid of her because he knew she was not like super strong in the Force.
Right. Yeah, Vader was definitely very confident in terms of like you're not a threat to me, which I don't think he views any of the Inquisitors as like a big threat, right? I mean, I know I saw some things about some of the backstories in the comics and whatever that I guess are maybe Disney canon or whatever, but like it seems like Vader's just clearly the most powerful, right? And
Only can stop one ship though, not two.
Right, exactly. Which like I have some things to say there, but like
that's my list. That's the only thing on my list.
Yeah, that like so obviously this was kind of like a callback to like the attack on Hoth, right? With the rebels hold up and like the first transport is away. But I watched Empire Strikes Back last night before this. I was like, let's see what parallels there are. It also felt a lot like the Siege of Helm's Deep to me in the Two Towers.
Yeah,
That's
right.
very true.
But
good.
Just there were a lot of parallels to the last couple episodes of the Clone Wars as well. Like Vader looking at sort of the going through hyperspace like Ahsoka was, and then having the two lightsabers like Ahsoka did, and using the Force to stop a ship like Ahsoka tried to, and so I think we're like deliberately. It's like they were deliberately referencing so many different things.
They only have one episode left. They got to get in as many as possible.
Right, exactly. It's like, let's get some Clone Wars references in with our episode 5 Empire Strikes Back references.
This is the way.
It's funny. I did have one thing that bothered me. The ship thing didn't bother me because the idea that I got was that it was a huge amount of strength that he had to use to like not only stop that ship but literally pull it back down to the ground, and that he was kind of like catching his breath when the next ship took off, and it was like, okay, I'm done. To me, it's you specifically like taunted Obi-Wan with "you shouldn't have left me alive." And then he leaves. I know. They want Reva to be there for episode 6. I couldn't think of any other reason to leave her alive. Like it made. Or even if he did, that the Grand Inquisitor wouldn't be like, okay, well, whatever, Vader, I'm going to kill you. Like it just, that one moment, especially with the call out for Obi-Wan not doing it, made no sense.
Yeah. Well, it's the number one villain move. You leave them without being sure that they're dead. Leave you in the gutter.
Yeah, I totally, I totally agree about that where, like the reveal of Reva's actual motives makes her leaving Haja alive makes sense, right? But it's like she literally did the same thing to the Grand Inquisitor who survived that, and now they did this to her, and it's like on some level, it's like they know she's going to survive, and that's part of their game, but that didn't make any sense because they said that they thought she was useless to them. And then the whole thing about her finding the transmitter at the end, I'm like, okay, that was, to me, that was like almost, that was like set up for the next episode. And I was like, this is how we're going to get there. And that feels very contrived. And them not killing her didn't seem to make any logical sense in world to me. But, for me, I was already like, okay, we got through the episode without any of the things that happened in the episode really bothering me. So like, we'll just call that a win. And, the ship thing, Ashley, were you bothered that Vader couldn't stop the second ship?
It was just that he didn't even like when he lifted the ship. I guess I wasn't looking to see if there was an equally just as big ship right behind it that he wouldn't even have looked at to see if there was movement or if it was on. And then he didn't even you would give it a go. You think I get he'd be tired, but you would at least just give it a try.
Right.
And nah, he was just like, ugh.
I can see that. I kind of had almost the opposite issue with it, where I didn't as much, but Lee was kind of like, oh, come on. Like, really? They can do this? And I'm like, well, and I had to pause it.
It pulled out of there real fast, too. That ship was just up and out.
Right, exactly. But, in Empire Strikes Back, Vader walks in and the Millennium Falcon just flies out. Yeah. He doesn't do anything to try and stop it, And then here, 10 years earlier, he's able to do this, and, Ahsoka's able to do something like this in the Clone Wars, and, Rey and Kylo Ren are basically doing something like that in Rise of Skywalker. And to me, it's just one of the big issues with massive connected universes is just power escalation. Power inflation, basically, where it's like, here Vader's able to do something that clearly he wasn't able to do in the original trilogy because they either hadn't thought of having him be able to do that in the original trilogy, they didn't want him to be able to do that because it wasn't convenient for the plot, or it was like, they just hadn't escalated to that point. And so, here that's one of the reasons that, to me, I actually kind of found like a little mental hack here where I've just decided that, for me, this series is a sequel to the prequels, not a prequel to the original trilogy. And as such, the bar's a little lower. There's no responsibility to what comes after. I don't think the prequels and the original trilogy fit that well together. And I really don't think they fit that well with the sequel trilogy, which doesn't even really fit with itself that well. But, kind of viewing each thing as its separate little segment, right? Mandalorian goes with the original trilogy. This goes with the prequel trilogy, and maybe eventually there will be some stuff that goes with the sequel trilogy. And kind of segmenting these things mentally a little bit. I think it just helps me just to be just if it kind of doesn't fit with that, that's okay. That other thing is still that other thing, and I don't have to let my view of that be influenced by this.
I think it's a good way to do it. And I certainly think, I think for me, it like I said, it did feel a little more believable because it just looked like he was kind of exhausted from that effort.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I could also see, I think there's a number of ways I could headcanon it. I could say that they are driven by emotion, and so the I want to stop Obi-Wan versus I want to stop this random rebel ship that might help me get information to this person who might be connected to someone who I might know.
Which one's that? Is that the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah, because at that point he doesn't really quite know who Luke is.
I was wow, he cared that much about the people on that ship?
I'm just saying, I think he has less direct reason to be fired up about that moment with in
Falcon. Empire.
In Empire, yeah.
Okay.
But also, it's also 10 years later, so maybe he's more past his prime. But, the show could have given us a line about that. Could have given us the Inquisitors being like, wow, I've never seen him do that before. And it's he must have really been feeling the emotion. Something to acknowledge, because that's the thing is, if you give me something that doesn't fit somewhere else, and just acknowledge that you as a writer acknowledge that I'm saying that word too often. If you just acknowledge that you as a writer know that it doesn't fit, and you're going to at least kind of pretend you're giving us a reason, cool, that's fine.
Right.
It's when you act like it does, like you said, it's when you act like it's totally logical that he would be able to do this to this ship, but not to the Falcon. You're right. That's when it starts to yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think that's referred to as lamp shading, right? Where you're basically we know, let's just Okay, can we? Thank you. I feel like that probably would have ended up being super awkward, but sometimes it can be done either really well or really badly. So it would be a challenge, But
well, it's funny because I wasn't thinking about him doing that, and I was like, of course Vader can do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but for you, it was the second ship that didn't make sense.
Yeah, it was just them like, we're hiding back here, and he didn't even notice, or I didn't even notice when I was watching the show that there was another ship that just pulled out and was fine.
Ship?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there was like no movement on that one, and that other, I don't know. I had to pick a gripe, and that was it.
Okay, well done, well done. You came up with a gripe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. So back to what stuff that folks like. So what do you think of the whole idea of the Grand Inquisitor and like him coming back and them having this plan?
I was just really glad that he came back because so many people were crying, it broke my continuity. And then I was like, of course they're going to bring that guy back. But so many people were mad. I saw so many different like anger comments about that guy being dead. Because what, does it break continuity from the animated show?
Is a character that shows up later in the timeline.
Okay.
So
yeah, when he came back, I was like, oh, look, such a shock. But I was happy to see him because he's sassy. I like him.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought he was so obviously not dead after episode 2. And it just seemed so silly that people were that upset about it. Just in terms of it just seems so gullible to me. I was like, really? You think this guy's dead? Like, really? He just got stabbed one time. We saw, Fennec Shand survive a gut shot, right? And she's just a normal human. She's tremendously badass, but she's not using the Force and her rage and thirst for vengeance to survive. I was like, come on, of course. Freaking Darth Maul got bisected and survived. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
somehow Palpatine survived.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the continuity guy. I'm the person who's on record complaining about things that didn't seem to fit continuity. That never bothered me because I never thought for a second that he was actually dead.
Yeah. If he was actually dead, then it's okay, if you're going to say Rebels isn't canon anymore, that's messed up. Rebels is better than a lot of other of the content. So why would you want to retcon it? But it was just so obvious. I mean, come on.
Yeah. To me, it was kind of towards the end of Loki.
Yeah.
There's that episode where two characters in theory died.
Right, they get hit with a stick.
And fans I knew were so upset. And I was like,
are you
come
serious?
on. How could you possibly leave that your two big stars are dead?
Right.
Yeah,
really
there's
be okay.
3 episodes left.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way those characters are actually dead.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of back from the dead, or at least careers being resurrected, we did finally get to see Mr. Hayden doing his acting thing. What'd you think of the not the 40-year-old virgin, but the 40-year-old Padawan?
I thought they did a good job with the younging CGI
the youngining?
Or whatever. Yeah, the youngining of them, not to be mistaken with younglings.
Right. the de-younglinging.
Yeah, I like that. I enjoyed every second of that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a lightsaber duel. More of those. Yes, please. Thanks. And it felt fine in terms of the acting and everything. I didn't have any issues with that. It felt like it fit well in this episode. And that kind of also sort of reinforced my feeling okay, let's just experience this as a sequel to the prequels, which I didn't love, but had parts that I liked a lot. Right. And, it felt kind of like a nice, I don't know, it almost reminded me a little bit of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield showing up in in a movie that I didn't love, but that part of it was really enjoyable. And here, this Anakin felt a little more to me like the Clone Wars Anakin than the prequel trilogy live action Anakin, which I love the Clone Wars Anakin, so I didn't find the de-aging super convincing. It's they took a 40-year-old and made him look like he's 30 pretending to be 18. Okay. Basically he looks like he could play a teenager in Hollywood, right?
It was really good use of the lightsaber to kind of distract you, and they're far away shots.
Yeah.
I didn't think they'd done any de-aging. I thought the idea was supposed to be that it was because they're each thinking about it today, they kind of imagine themselves as they are today instead of back then. But like, yeah, to me, I thought it was a fantastic scene. I really liked the lightsaber fight. I also really liked sort of Obi-Wan kind of like pointing out the things that Anakin is still getting wrong, and them, both of them like reflecting on it because of how it comes up in this moment. And then there were close-up scenes of this 40-year-old man with a stupid braid, and I was like, yeah, okay, that was 2 seconds out of my life that I could get back, but whatever. It's everything else about that scene, and I think you're right. I think I don't think Hayden ever went so far as to say something like, I learned how to better play this character from the voice actor who was playing him in the Clone Wars. But he certainly has said that watching the Clone Wars helped him a lot. And I think, yeah, this version felt closer to the version that Matt Latner did the voice for in Clone Wars. And I think that's better. I think it makes him a better character.
I think anything that they would have put on film would be better than every second of the other ones. Because Ewan McGregor kind of had to like act down a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I mean, I've only seen Hayden Christensen in like one other thing, which also wasn't a very good movie.
Was it Shattered Glass?
No, it was it was a ways back. It was Jumper.
Oh, okay, Jumper. Ugh.
Right, which like, okay,
great power, bad movie.
And that kind of made me think like, all right, maybe it's not the content, maybe it's the actor, and like But like the movie itself wasn't very good, and like it's not like Samuel L. Jackson was great in it either.
Natalie Portman's lines are so like, you're like, girl, I know you can act. You've been doing it since you were very little.
Yeah, no, I was talking about Jumper, but yes, exactly. Oh. The original trilogy. I mean, Samuel is in both, right? But it like
got this.
I mean, I just think George Lucas is not a good writer-director. I think George Lucas is a really good story writer. And, I mean, apparently, I don't know, have you seen some of the clips on, like, how Star Wars had to be saved from its horrible, horrible dialogue that, like, didn't make it into the... There's some things you can, look it up on YouTube, like Mark Hamill saying these lines, and it's like, oh, wow, that's a bad line.
Apparently it's not quite Jaws level of editing, but... Lucas's wife, who did the editing, is thought of as being like, in the same way that person saved Jaws, this person saved Star Wars.
Edith.
Right. And it's even, there's even things that they just didn't shoot because they were like, this dialogue you just can't, Yeah. But it was a great story, and I think here it's like, I think you've got a story, and I think Deborah Chow is a better director than George Lucas, so the same actor, you're going to get more out of them, and that's not to take anything away from anyone's performance, right? I mean, obviously the actors still have to do the thing, but I think having a better director, having better writers, like I think it helps. I think it helps a lot.
It helps a lot, and better direct,
yeah.
Like I think of George Lucas because I don't want to like discount the amazing things he's done. But I think of him very much like J.R.R. Tolkien, in that both of them built these incredible worlds, but the worlds really come to life when someone else is actually telling the story in those worlds.
Right. Yeah, to a greater extent, for sure.
Yeah. So what else? We got Leia crawling around in the ducks a little bit. That was also, I thought, a little bit eye-rolly. I don't quite know why you put your like breaker board in a place that no one else is going to be able to get to.
Right.
I'm going to say, having done lighting crew and having climbed around in just bizarre parts of structures, like I think that's totally a thing.
Okay.
Like
that many loose wires hanging around too.
And so many loose wires hanging around. You have no idea. Definitely not OSHA compliant. Fair. But, like, I mean, we've seen the working conditions in Star Wars. Come on,
Yeah.
Like, it's not well designed, but it's not like they built this thing custom for their own use, right? They're, like, repurposing some other facility. So, I found I didn't love that Lola was, like, the saboteur. I mean, it makes sense plot-wise, but it's just like, you're going to take the droid and make, her kind of like that.
That evil little droid.
Exactly,
I was okay with it only because I didn't want some scene of a 10-year-old girl having her heart broken by having to destroy her own droid.
Yes.
And so when it was just like, oh, Lola, you betrayed me. I'll take off this restraining bolt. Everything's fine now.
So much better than the alternatives.
Okay, that's so much better. You dodged a real bullet there, and I'm okay with this now.
Yeah, I agree totally.
Especially because, like, one of the things that I love so much about Princess Leia, both in A New Hope, but even more so in Rebels, is she feels like someone who thinks she can get away with anything. In part because, and I don't mean this in a bad way, the way it sometimes can come off. I think she's had this very entitled, privileged upbringing where she could get away with anything.
Right.
And so she does have that, she knows she's going against Imperial stormtroopers, and if something goes wrong, they could shoot her in the kind of where she comes up in Rebels and stuff like that. But she still has this attitude of come on, guys, I'm a princess. You're not going to say no to me. Let's be honest here.
Right.
And I feel like every step you take towards making her have these traumatic experiences when she's a kid makes it more but why then isn't she jaded? Why isn't she more broken by that? And so, the fact that she never actually is tortured, it's pretty traumatic what she goes through, but still it stops before the actual torture, and that she doesn't have to actually destroy, her best friend droid. It's okay, you're pushing it already a little bit, but I appreciate you're, not going that far.
Yeah, she kind of keeps making it out okay of all these, very messed up situations. And it's okay, I can see why she would think things are going to go well for her.
Yeah,
right.
When she fell off that building.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's
fault.
I'm invincible.
That's where my story with that kid would have ended. Bye. Keep running. I'm trying to help you. Sorry.
Exactly. It was kind of cool to see, I can never remember the character's name. Camille Lajani, though, I think is the actor.
Talo?
Kala, yeah. See him pop back.
Oh, never mind.
About,
Roger.
Yeah, I was
who?
I thought Tala's the girl.
I thought you were talking about someone else. You're talking about Haja.
Haja, yeah, thank you. I thought him coming back was kind of cool. Tala's death, though, that was... Here's my thing about Tala's death. And again, I really did like this episode.
This is going to be so fun. Go ahead.
I think for the three of us, I've heard you can actually do some very good podcasts. They're just talking about all the things you love and going in depth about them. And I think even on Superhero Ethics, we do that a lot. I think for the three of us, the particular energy we bring, we're three East Coasters, which means we're all kind of terrible people. And so we just we're going to get into the critique.
We are very honest people who are speaking the truth. That is what we are. I found,
and certainly never pretentious or
found that
very better than anyone
offensive.
else's.
You could just tell that you guys are poker players.
I don't
I'm
consider
the
myself
blackjack
pretentious,
player,
so
because I want everyone at the table to win, and you guys are just trying to win.
Poker, somebody wins, somebody loses. That's where the money comes from. That's how
I played a lot of blackjack in Vegas this last weekend. But back to the topic. I'm going to Vader grab us and pull us back.
Yeah.
I'll be totally exhausted by the end.
We'll be in another ship going off.
Yeah, he
while
only
you're
has
there.
one. He only gets one, so
You
let
only
him
get
have
one.
it.
All right, the editing button is going to be used very liberally here. Here's the thing. One of the ideas of the Jedi Code is that you're supposed to love life without being too attached to any one particular person, And so when towards the end of Attack of the Clones, the second movie, and Anakin wants to stop and make sure that that Padme is okay, Obi-Wan's no, you can't do that. They'll kick you out of the order. You can't, and he says to him later, you cannot be so focused on any one person. You have to be focused on the larger picture. And that's an essential part of the Jedi that we get from the movies, from the TV shows, from the books. And so to have Obi-Wan watching so many people in this group that he's trying to help be killed or wounded, many of them wounded, and he's not upset about it, and he's not going back for them. And then the person who's been helping him for a couple of episodes now, which is maybe 72 hours total, maybe a week total, and all of a sudden he's super upset, and he's fighting to go back and get her. It just felt very out of character for him.
I don't know. I feel like they had built a relationship, a friend, relationship over the last couple episodes more than, say, that guy who I can't remember his name that we were supposed to be upset about in the last episode.
Oh, no, I think
Wade.
they had, to be sure.
Wade, oh, God.
I think they had, to be sure, but I think his whole thing is, you're not supposed to get that upset about the person who you've only, who, even if they are very close to you.
All right.
Which is why the one time he did do it, it's so particularly affecting.
Right, and so I kind of think, first of all, this is a different Obi-Wan than he was 10 years earlier. But also in the time during the Clone Wars, I think that happens a lot. Where, I mean, I don't think Obi-Wan is somebody who's never had attachments, right? I think he sees
like I
that
said, I
as
think
this,
there's one very notable exception at least.
well, yeah, for sure, but not one note. I mean, numerous very. I mean, Anakin was definitely a very notable exception. So was Padme, for that matter. Even whatever he might have said in Attack of the Clones, you know, I think Obi-Wan, you know, saw that as this, you know, the Jedi creed. Also, I mean, like, Attack of the Clones is terrible. So, like,
Also fair.
I'm not gonna have that inform Obi-Wan's character too much in my regard. But I think it made sense to me. You know, like, that is who I understand Obi-Wan to be at this point in time. And, you know, I mean, first of all, I think the idea of the non-attachment on some level is fairly ridiculous, and the entire reason that you end up losing Anakin to the dark side, right? Like, it's...
I think that's very true, but I don't think it makes it not the story.
No, I know. I mean, that's definitely the story, right? But, like, I mean, first of all, like, maybe Obi-Wan kind of learned something from that, but also in this story, I feel like Obi-Wan has formed attachments after a period of isolation and like a decade of
him
solitude.
and Leia.
You know, with Leia, I think with Tala, maybe not anyone else too much, you know, but I think, yeah, it didn't feel out of character to me at all. It felt, I mean, and, you know, he did then just kind of go on pretty quickly. Like, they didn't super belabor it. I'll say this is, I think this is funny because, like, I don't know, a large percentage of character deaths in stories really bother me a lot. And here, I felt like, first of all, I went into this episode feeling like most of these people are probably going to die horribly very soon. Right? Like when I saw Rogue One, I was just like, none of these people are going to make it through this movie alive, you know? And so then, you know, how it ends up, like, doesn't bother me at all. Cause I'm like, yeah, that's the story. Cause of course that's the story. Right. And to me, it felt like it made sense in context. Like, she had agency and accomplished a thing, right? Like, Obi-Wan wants to save everybody, but, you know, he can't. And, you know, I did feel like her backstory felt like a little wedged in here, and it was like, oh, okay, you're doing this maybe like so that we like feel something or whatever. But like, you know, we hadn't really had a long time to get to know her. It's been, you know, 3 episodes, which, you know, you're right in terms of story time is probably just a few days or something. But yeah, it felt to me like, here's something that makes sense in context. You know, the characters or a couple of the characters are having some clear reaction to it, but they're also in the middle of a fight, and they're not like, it felt like they weren't freezing on that and like doing one of those, let's have slow motion and a lot of music and like,
God, yeah.
You know what I mean?
JJ was nowhere close to this, and that made it much better.
Right. And, you know, I was like, she's holding a thermal detonator. Wait, that's episode 6. But
I was like, throw it. What are you doing?
right, yeah. Why not just throw it? But, you know, the fact that there were so many stormtroopers and, you know, an Inquisitor, and it felt like, okay, this is definitely a reasonable spot for things to not go super well, as opposed to some sort of thing that the heroes had. Like, this is what bothers me sometimes, is when, like, writers are like, okay, we're going to kill off this character so that we can get either an emotional reaction from the audience or from some character, right?
Right.
And the thing that makes that particularly irksome is when it's like some situation, some scenario that they've basically escaped from 100 times, and then all of a sudden they don't. And it's like, it just feels contrived to me. And it's like, they just wanted to write this way. Here it felt like this did feel like an organic way that the story would go. And like, I don't know, it's just a rare time that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was totally okay with her dying. And even him being emotional about it didn't bother me. It was more because, like, and granted, I've rewatched all of Clone Wars fairly recently.
Yeah.
Like, there are numerous times where even though he is very connected to Ahsoka, or even Anakin, you know, he is like, look, we have to focus on the wider mission. We can't let our emotions control. and maybe this was also how it was shot, because again, like, there was a second ship, so why weren't those people already on the ship just getting ready for when you could launch?
That was that was like, why aren't they all on the ship? Why weren't they on the ship the whole freaking time?
Yeah.
To me, what it felt like was
fight.
at this moment when they all needed him to help them get to the ship and protect them to get to the ship, that he was like, okay, forget you, I'm going to go see if Tala's okay. And it was that idea of, going away from your larger responsibility to focus on the one person because you have a particular emotional attachment to them. That feels like the whole thing that he's been critiquing Anakin for this whole time. And so that's the thing that felt like off to me.
Well, maybe that's why they did it, because God, he's like the Jedis are such hypocrites.
Right. But like, was he actually going away from, I mean, he was trying to be there, trying to hold people off, right? And then she's like, no, you go and I will hold them off and blow myself up. Like, he wasn't,
she closed the door.
He wasn't shirking his responsibility in any way I saw. He just wanted to also be there and fight and die, probably. Like,
That's certainly possible. Like I said, the way the whole thing was shot, it's kind of hard to tell what was going on. That was the impression I got. But I could well be wrong on that.
I thought it was pretty clear that, like, all the stormtroopers and Reva were coming down that tunnel or whatever, and a bunch of them were trying to hold them off, including Obi-Wan. And then Tala was basically like, and he was like, "Oh, let me try and help her," but also he's confronting the stormtroopers there, and then she's just like, "No, go, leave me." And I don't know. It didn't feel to me like there was somewhere else he was supposed to be, right? I mean,
okay.
So, but I don't know. That, I mean, if there was, then I could see that being more of an issue. But again, like, I feel like in the Clone Wars and in Attack of the Clones, he's trying to be this example for people, right? He's trying to be an example for Anakin. This is how we do it, and to Ahsoka, well, we have to do it this way, Ahsoka. I'm teaching you. He's being a teacher. Here, he's not being a teacher. I mean, he gave that very brief speech, but it's like, also like, that's not a speech that annoyed me a whole bunch. It's just like, it was kind of short. It was like, okay, yeah, those seem like useful things for people to know. Okay, let's go do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, it just, I don't know. I didn't feel like he was like really shirking his duty, and also I just think that this Obi-Wan is acting in a very different capacity than in Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's definitely true. I think, to me, it also goes to, we were talking before, at least I certainly was, about, like, that part of what I was looking forward to in this show was some more self-reflection, or just giving us more of a picture of, like, does he kind of look back on it and go, maybe we should have not been so strict with Anakin about attachments? Right. Or is he like, oh, God, the little bit of attachment that I let Anakin have is what destroyed him? Like, I think if I'd had more of that interiority from him, this scene would have made more sense.
Sure.
But, I'm seeing a lot of takes right now that are like, oh my God, you didn't give us the exact take I wanted, so this is terrible. To be very clear, that's not where I am at all.
Yeah,
it's just not, it didn't make as much sense to me, and I think that something like that would help make it more sense, but that's also just, that's how stories work.
I feel kind of like there's a lot of things that they need to deliver on in episode 6 to have something, like, in this episode, I felt like Obi-Wan made sense to me, and I understood kind of where he was emotionally, but also, like, there's a conclusion of this arc that very much hasn't happened yet. Right. And there was some movement here in this episode, but I do think, I mean, if you really want to deliver with this series, I do think you have to confront, the issue you're saying, which is like this idea that, attachment is the problem, and honestly, if this attachment if that kind of moment of attachment had gone horribly awry here, that would kind of make some sense to me in terms of, like, I do think Obi-Wan kind of thinks that was the problem, but I'm not sure, and to be clear, I don't think that's a good lesson, and I don't think that's the lesson of the original trilogy at all, right? In the original trilogy, Obi-Wan and Yoda are like, if you honor for what your friends fight for, then you have to just let them be there and die while you continue the training, and then you'll do your thing. And Luke's like, no, I'm going to go and confront Vader. Doesn't go super good, but, like, gets out alive. And then it's clearly Luke's attachment to Vader, to Anakin, that like is the end of the story, right? That's why Anakin turns back and kills the Emperor. And that's kind of almost a like, he's like, I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. And then Anakin's like, yeah, I'm a Jedi, but still is kind of like rejecting the idea of attachment being the problem, you know?
Yeah.
Which I don't think the problem for Anakin was attachment. I think the problem was the prohibition of attachment, you know, and then how he reacted to that was the problem.
Right.
Anakin. We finally got to see Order 66 for the most part.
Right, that part. Yeah, what do you all think about the prior to the episode, you know, spoiler warning, basically?
I knew
Spoiler,
exactly
actually,
that's
spoiler.
that's what it was going to be.
Of
yeah.
course. Yeah.
Because they teased. I thought they were going to do it in the first episode, but they did not. I don't know. I feel like that stuff is important to the story because Anakin, he did something. It's the worst thing you can do. Like, there's no coming back from that, which is exactly why Palpatine sent him there to do it. Because
Right.
once you do that, that's kind of it.
I think that's actually a really good point that doesn't get talked about a lot, that Palpatine knew that in having him go kill those people.
Because, like, what are you
Yeah.
going to say? Like, take me back? No, you can't after that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's an outstanding point that I haven't ever actually really thought about. You know, that it's like, yeah, that's why Palpatine
Really?
did that, was to be like, you cannot come back from this, you know?
It was a way to trap him.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I do think that, like...
I think to trap him and to test him. It's also like,
Sure.
how ready are you to do
Yeah.
anything I tell you?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I do think that, like, I mean, killing a bunch of people is, like, yeah, pretty much the worst thing you could do, but, like... I think killing a bunch of children isn't materially worse than killing a bunch of not children. And I feel like there's just so much ageism in our world and in Star Wars as well. And that's kind of like a part of it, you know, is like this, like, I mean, I don't think children's lives should be valued less than they are, but I don't think they should be valued more than adults' lives or like even like older adults' lives. And I think it's just really messed up, but...
I think I see your point, but I think that this is where the issue isn't, do we think that he crossed a major line? It's that, was he crossing one of his own major lines?
Oh, yeah. No,
Because
that's why I totally agree with the point in terms of, I think it functions within the context of people's understandings of the values of you know, and the consequence of different actions. I'm just saying personally, you know, this is like a pet peeve kind of like
That's fair.
how society views things. But in terms of within the context of the story, 100%. I think that's an outstanding point.
Yeah. Totally. I get that. And, like, this is a somewhat different thing, but I really hate when we're about to see a villain kill a whole bunch of people and they have to show us a little kid being cute who's about to be in danger to make it more powerful. Like, that, I think, is nonsense.
Yeah.
But to go back to your earlier question, I think this show, especially coming when it did, I understand why they were like, look, you know, we're talking about dead kids a week after, when the first episode came out, a literal week after there was a horrible killing of kids in the real world. I think we could probably have a longer discussion over on Superhero Ethics about, do you do content warnings, do you don't? I think what I'm coming to is, like, I want people who want content warnings to have full access to them.
Yeah.
I also don't want things to be spoiled because of them. And I think I may have sent this to you, Paul, for the exact reason. There's a great website called Does the Dog Die?
Right, yeah.
And you can use it to look up almost any piece of media, any book, any movie, any TV show, and it's all user submitted. It's just kind of like Wikipedia, like it's edited.
Sure.
But and you probably have to wait like 24 hours after the thing is up, but it will be, because, like, you know, I think, Paul, you have said, like, you know, watching certain things that would bother many people don't bother you.
Yeah.
But if the animal is killed, that may well be a reason you don't want to watch. You know, and for me, it might be like if I see disabled people being treated a certain way, I might not want to watch. And I think if shows just said, like, generalized trigger warning, check this website for more information.
Yeah.
You know, then people could know, okay, let me check if it has one of the things that's going to bother me. And if it, or just let me see what it is and see if that will bother me. And the people who don't want to do that don't have to.
So someone had posted something like that about a different show around the same time as the shooting, and I had just put on there, I was like, hey, this can be kind of a little bit of a spoiler because, I read it and a couple people had kind of like reported it as like a spoiler, but I said it like in a really nice way and it did not take long. Like I didn't get like attacked, but I was immediately like told I was, not being, I wasn't caring about the situation. It was said specific. I can't remember it. But then I honestly deleted the post and I DM'd the person and the conversation went really well.
That's
but
good.
It's like, it also wasn't the time, it's not the time to kind of stand up for that. I was like, I don't know. We walk a very weird line.
Yeah, I don't agree that. I think it's always the time to stand up for that. Like either... I understand, like, something horrible happened and it's very traumatic for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Like, every day, so many horrible things happen that are traumatic for a lot of people. And for me, it feels a little bit like sort of like picking favorites. Like, well, this is... I feel like they put the warnings for the things they feel like they have to put the warnings for. Mm-hmm. Not really, like, out of some sort of, like, corporate responsibility.
Well,
not
and also the show had a warning. So it wasn't like you were putting it on and not knowing.
Yeah, that makes So I feel like I don't think any given like there's just no telling what any given thing. Like there's some things you'll be like, oh yeah, well this clearly is going to upset a certain number of people, right? But like basically anything could set off anybody, right? And so I think honestly, like not having warnings or categories or whatever in the front of a piece of content. I think instead, like, just like telling people that website exists. That's great. It says tracking 90 plus categories, including like deer toy destruction. Like, I don't want to see someone destroying like a teddy bear. Like, that's very specific. But like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to see that either. And
to be clear, you're not making that up. You're on the website.
Oh, I'm looking at it. That's the first category listed. Then there's like ableism, anti-Semitism, drug use, car crashes, propaganda. It's like, okay, yeah. Heads getting squashed. That's like stillbirths, like amputation, like, yeah, no, these are like things that you're like, okay, yeah, clearly I can see how some of these things I'm going to find very upsetting in certain contexts, and other ones I'm going to be like, okay, well, this is a movie about the Holocaust. There's probably going to be some anti-Semitism depicted, And
like I'll give a great example of that. It's long enough gone now that I think I don't mind spoiling it. The second Mamma Mia movie is largely about, the mother having died and how everyone else deals with that. Mm-hmm. That is a perfectly fine plot point that movies use all the time.
Right.
I saw it 2 months after my own mother had died, and I was absolutely emotionally wrecked.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's the duty of the movie to... I would have liked if I'd had the opportunity... If I'd known about that website, I think I would have had the opportunity to say, you know what? Does a mother die in this? Okay,
right.
If it does, I'm now asking that question. Anyway, I think we should do a longer podcast on this, but it does seem like we're all... To your question, I think, especially the way... I wasn't bothered by this because it was so generalized. It was, there are scenes in this that may bother people.
Right.
So I think this didn't bother me, but I think if there had been like, violence against children as depicted,
right.
Something like that, I would have been more like, maybe you don't have to go that far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in the context of the moment, like it's just, they might as well have said that. As far as I'm concerned, the generalized warning, I'm like, you could put that in front of literally any piece of fiction and it would be true. You know what I mean? But because you put it in front of this one and it's Star Wars and Order 66, like we know exactly. I'm like, it didn't like upset me, but it kind of made me roll my eyes. And I was like, oh, well, I guess we get Reva's backstory in this one.
Yeah.
See,
I got excited because that was something that you said you wanted.
Yeah. You're like, oh.
And look at that backfire. No.
Right. Yeah. No, I liked the actual scene.
I know.
I like the scene. Here's a question. A content question.
Can I just say one more thing and then you ask your question?
Sure.
Because to me, I'll also just say, whatever light spoiling happens with those warnings, it's nowhere near as bad as like you click on the website and the episode description pops up.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Any of those shows that tell you
last
time on, and all of a sudden a character you haven't seen for 3 seasons is in the last time on.
Yeah.
So then you can be surprised when that character shows up that episode. Like, of all the things that these shows do to spoil us in terrible ways, I think the warning labels are lower on the list than other
Yeah,
things.
I agree with that. I do think, like, if they specifically showed, like, the Grand Inquisitor getting impaled at the beginning of this episode, but not the beginning of the last episode, it'd be like, oh, he's coming back. Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And often the credits, like when they put the credits of the guest stars, like at the beginning of the episode, I'm like, what are you doing? I don't want to know that Drusilla comes back in this episode, you know? Like,
I remember exactly that.
yeah, no, literally that exact thing. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that. Here's a question. So in that scene where Vader impales Reva, they showed it like she was just standing there and got impaled by Anakin. Was that like sort of a fantasy kind of imagining what could have happened then? Or do you think she actually got impaled by Anakin back then and somehow her like dark side energy, like she survived?
I'd like to think that that's it.
I don't even know if dark side or just that, like, you know, he was killing 1,000 people. He didn't like check everyone's pulse, but
no, but I mean, like, a child got impaled by a lightsaber and didn't die. Like, there's something that's, you know what I mean?
She seems to be 0 for 2 for that.
Right.
So maybe she's not using the Force to push things around. She's just, you know, internally uses the Force in a different way.
Keep her organs intact.
Yeah.
Just like the GI.
Let me just shift my liver over a couple of inches. So it's,
Yeah.
I think, actually, what I got out of it was that, you know, because Anakin is, especially as Vader, very good at sensing things in people. You know, like, even as powerful as Luke is, Vader literally reads his mind to be like, oh, you're protecting your sister. He's good at getting inside people's heads, and he's good at sensing where they are with the Force.
Yeah.
I took it as he sensed some darkness in this kid already and was like, you know what? What if I don't give her a death blow? Let's see what happens.
I'll just run her through one time and see what happens. Yeah. Why not?
It's always through the shoulder. Maybe.
So little time, so many kids to kill.
Yeah.
I mean, because the way they shot it, it felt to me like it was certainly being mirrored in her head, and I thought the idea was that because it was the same kind of thing, and to me, like, Vader's not going to forget that, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but also like that actually happened then, right? That's your interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Vader in this very intentionally stabbed her in a way that was very reminiscent of exactly what he did to her back then.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like, that's how I choose to interpret it as well, but I thought it was perhaps not as much vague as much as open for interpretation, is how I would say it.
Yeah.
I think it's fair.
It's artsy. That red lightsaber fight, though, was
so good.
Everything.
So good.
And then when I thought, I was like, oh no, it's almost over. And then he throws her the lightsaber back. I was like, yes, round 2.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Yeah, I have to say that whole confrontation to me made up for the sort of what felt like awkwardness at the end of episode 4, where he was confronting Reva and like kind of felt like Vader was getting punked a little bit, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like this
He's
doesn't
playing the game.
feel Vader to me. Right, exactly. Yeah. But knowing that was all a setup, I'm like, okay, I can get with that. And the fact that he tossed the saber back to her and was like, all right, let's go again. I love. Yeah. You know, it's so like the level of sort of like calm and just like kind of domination that Vader displays in that scene in episode 5, I think that's very much like the Darth Vader that I know and love.
Yeah.
You know?
It was great.
I mean, like, I think we saw this even in the original trilogy, but especially in stuff that's come later. You know, like, people have talked about this, how in Rogue One...
That's like my favorite scene.
His cape is billowing in a spaceship that has no wind. Like, he's doing that for effect, you know? Or, like, I think literally he, like, walks in with all his machinery turned off. So he's, like, not breathing for 30 seconds. And
right.
In Star Wars Rebels,
yeah.
he doesn't just fly a spaceship. He gets on top of the spaceship and force moves the spaceship to land.
Right.
Just to be extra. Like,
yeah,
that's exactly what Anakin would do.
For sure.
Oh, Anakin.
Love it.
I love the Skywalker boys. So sad. So extra.
Yep.
So do we think that that's going to be why they named Leia named Ben?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was always after Kenobi, right? But it was always kind of unclear how much they potentially knew each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if that's not a little bit of a loop or plot hole, because they obviously never talk about it.
Right.
So maybe she forgets him. I don't know, because he does age 5,000 years between now and when she sees him.
You know what? I want to say something about that too. Like, Ewan McGregor's age in this is not that off track from Alec Guinness's age in the first movie, in A New Hope. You know, and I think there's this very different perception of like how much different people look as they age. And I think in the 70s, people kind of just aged how they aged. And now people like pretend that they don't age, you know, to an extent. And, you know,
and
I
it
mean,
makes
some of
more
it's the
sense
white
if
hair.
you've been living on a sun planet, you're going to look like a raisin.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. You're going to, you're going to wrinkle a little bit. And you know what?
No sunblock on Tatooine.
Not so much with the Botox, you know, back in the 70s, as far as I understand. So
I would totally use the Force to keep my face in place.
Right. Yeah.
I have totally come around to that. I think at first I didn't see it, but then I realized because what I was looking specifically for was the hair color.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like there are so many other signs of aging, and hair color can change pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, especially in high stress situations.
Absolutely. And for that matter, I mean, Ewan McGregor in this, I think, has sort of salt and pepper, but it's like the hair's blonde to begin with, so it's not as pronounced. But it's like if you look, you're like, oh yeah, there's some white in the beard, you know.
He's got some Doctor Strange streaks going on a little bit.
Right. So you know, it doesn't feel to me as I'm like, no, this actually seems like pretty believable aging in terms of. I mean, it's funny that Sebastian Shaw, who played Anakin in Return of the Jedi, right, was older, I believe, than Alec Guinness. And, you know, Anakin's supposed to be younger, but like he aged pretty rough, you know?
And I think they aged up Alec Guinness, like using like 70s technology. But yeah, Alec Guinness did not look as old as Obi-Wan Kenobi did.
Maybe, I guess. I mean, I think he was supposed to look like a, you know, that wizard's just a crazy old man or something kind of thing, you know. But I don't think they did a lot. It's, you know, it's not like the Emperor, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's also possible that like at age 10, I thought someone in their 50s was very, very old. At age 44,
Absolutely.
I'm like, no, he's not that old.
Right. Yeah, totally. And
Obi-Wan's an old man. That means he has to be 20 years older than me at all times.
Right.
Fry.
People's perception of age is highly dependent on their own age. This has always been true.
Mm-hmm. It really is. So we're wrapping up. Here's the 3 questions I want to ask you all about episode 6, or 1 question, 3 parts. What's one thing that you would like to see happen in episode 6? What's one thing that you think is probably not going to happen, but would just like make you absolutely ecstatic if you did get to see it? And what's one thing that you absolutely do not want to have happen, and you'll be annoyed if it does happen in episode 6?
I could do this. I'll go first.
Yeah, please do.
I really want to see another Vader Kenobi lightsaber fight. I would really love if Ahsoka showed up. And what don't I want? I don't know. You have to get back to me.
So
let me think about that one.
So I don't really have anything, and I mostly am going to abstain from answering the question because I think I enjoyed this episode more by kind of going in without much in the way of expectations.
That's fair.
And so I think that hopefully will work well for me in the 6th episode. You know, like I want to enjoy things, right? But like if there's something that really bothers me, like I'm not going to trick myself into enjoying it. But like, you know, the frame of mind going into something definitely has an influence, you know. I will say I don't want to see Ahsoka versus Vader.
Even if she's in a flashbacks, give me something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, for sure. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. Although, like, you're going to make Rosario Dawson play a teenager while Hayden Christensen plays like a 20. Oh, okay. Like, you know what?
Here's the other thing, I think, and this is where this kind of goes back to our question earlier about like continuity and stuff like that. I think Star Wars is kind of in this weird place right now where there are 3 different levels of canon. And they're all considered canon, but in different ways. There's the live action on film stuff. There's the animated film stuff, and then there's the books. And I think to some extent, like the live action is the most like, we expect that you've seen all the other stuff in order for this to make sense. The other ones are more on the level of like, yeah, it's going to help you if you've seen these, but we're not going to tell the story in a way that you're going to miss things if you haven't seen that. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because I think, and Paul, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think part of the little disagreement there, not even disagreement, but why we saw it differently is Paul and I have seen an epic confrontation between Vader and Ahsoka.
I watched that episode.
Okay. Oh, you have seen that too. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
But it's like pretty clear that they have not had any contact between those two. I think. I mean, I know, Matthew, you think that it seemed like Vader and Obi-Wan hadn't had any contact between, in that 20-year span. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's open for interpretation. But it felt to me clearly like Ahsoka did not know that. That was Anakin. And I think she didn't even really know much about Vader, which sometimes it's like, it's hard to kind of have all these things happen and make sense. If you give me a flashback and it's good, I'll take it though. I'll give you that. And like, yes, please, on a lightsaber fight. Multiple lightsaber fights. Just give me... This one had lots of lightsaber fights peppered throughout, and then lightsaber versus blasters. Like, just more of that, please and thank you.
It was what I wanted.
Yeah. And I think we'll get that. I think there's 100% we're going to get a showdown, Vader versus Obi-Wan.
What I don't want to see is no lightsaber fights.
Right. A lack of lightsaber fights is what I don't want to see. All right, I'm with you on that. You got me.
I think it's very fair. And I think, frankly, we might see a number of people involved in a lightsaber fight. Because I think Reva against the Grand Inquisitor, or like those two, like it might be like a 4-way lightsaber battle with some crossing over. I do think that in this episode, they did establish that that Anakin relies a little bit too much on his lightsaber, and that there's a whole thing where like Anakin disarms Obi-Wan and thinks he's won, but then Obi-Wan is like, no, like, you haven't won yet. Right. So I think that was setting up for the idea that Obi-Wan is going to win the confrontation, but without necessarily defeating him with a lightsaber. But I think there will be a lightsaber fight for sure.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny though, because to that point, Vader like defeated Reva without using a lightsaber. Like it was a lightsaber duel, but he never drew his lightsaber.
It was just hers.
It was just hers.
Yeah.
And he was just using the Force against her constantly, and then finally took her lightsaber, broke it in half, and was like, here, you can have one half. Let's go. But like, I'm not even going to... Like, it was just so contemptuous. It was like, I'm not even going to draw. Yeah.
It wasn't like... I was thinking of that scene in comparison to like Inigo Montoya, where he's like, I want to defeat you in the most honorable combat I can.
Right.
Whereas like, Vader is just like, oh... I will have more fun with this mouse if this mouse gets a weapon for a while.
Right, exactly. He was like playing with his food, basically.
Yeah,
pretty
much. I think you make a good point, Paul, and I think in terms of like not trying to have expectations, I think though it goes back to the whole thing about like, to me, that's the problem with prequels, is that, and I will say it was just announced today that the Taika Waititi Star Wars trilogy is going to have very little connection to like the Skywalker story, if any at all. And I was thrilled to hear that.
Yeah,
there's I don't even know this is a thing.
Yeah, like to me, but Rogue One is far and away my favorite prequel, because I think it is such a good job of like, we're going to tell you a story based in the same world, but none of the same characters, or the few characters are going to be very, very minimal.
Yeah, and it's going to interact a little bit, but it's not going to... It's really only going to favorably influence your perception of something else by being like, no, really, this fatal flaw, there was a reason. It wasn't a ridiculous, oversight.
Like, because I was kind of thinking about that, about the conversation we had about attachment, because, Paul, I think you said it very well. The whole point of the original trilogy is that the idea that you cannot be... that you have to not have attachments in order to be a Jedi breaks with Luke. But for that to make sense, Obi-Wan can't have learned that lesson. Like, or at least not in the same way. Like to me, if Anakin has figured out, no, it's okay. I should have let Anakin have attachments, then I question why he and Yoda were like, yeah, but don't have attachments, Luke.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And that does limit kind of how much, like, what kind of character development you can have here, right?
Right.
To some extent. Yeah. But I will continue to view this as a sequel to the prequels, not as a prequel, in order to mentally sidestep that potential chasm.
That's fair.
And if they have some Ahsoka thing and it doesn't fit with Rebels, that's okay. I don't care about canon anyway. I kind of just never have.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. I think for me, Ahsoka isn't the thing I really want, especially because, like I said, the timing of who the actors are wouldn't really work out. But also, like we know Ahsoka's going to get her own show.
Yeah, that's a big one.
The thing that I think there's a decent chance of that I would like to see happen is Liam Neeson. That he does get to talk to Force Ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has to happen.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, do that.
I think that has to happen. The thing that's a reach for me, that's like, I don't think they're going to do it, especially not in the 6th episode. And especially because, like I said, we're not really treating the animated as canonical as the live action, but I would really like to see some reference to Satine. We sort of got it a little bit, but it was actually really Padme he was talking about. But I mean, that was such a like, I would like it to be part of his conversation with Qui-Gon, about like where did he go wrong with Anakin, or like some kind of reference. Even if he doesn't say the name Satine, but him saying like maybe because of the love that I turned my back on, that's why I couldn't stop Anakin, or whatever it is.
Right.
And as for the thing that I really don't want to see, I don't want to see Reva. I don't want to see a redemption arc for Reva. I want to let her be the dark side character. And I think in some ways that actually was part of what made me feel really okay with Tala's death. Because I think there may have been a version of the script, or someone in some script room said, well, so what if Reva has this noble death defending them, and like Obi-Wan gets really upset about that, and they're like, and so that's where the character of Tala was born, and I'm headcaning the writer's room there.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it went like that, but I'm just saying, like, put it another way. I think they could have written it in a way where the character who Obi-Wan gets upset about when she dies nobly to save them is Reva. And I'm very glad they didn't do that. And so if they kind of do that, I would both think it kind of undercuts Tala's story, and definitely think it undercuts Reva's story.
So are we supposed to think at the end that she is going to tell somebody about what's on Tatooine? I was a little confused about the whole Luke thing at the end.
I'm not sure what we're supposed to think. I think we're supposed to think, oh no, she has the thing. This is going to be bad. Better tune in next week for episode 6, the exciting conclusion of the series. But I don't know.
Because why would she be going after?
Yeah, like it seems like she's clearly headed to Tatooine. So like, I guess we'll see what happens there. And I think it'll be a multi-way showdown. Maybe like. What if the end is actually... Because you see... I do want to speak to your point, Matthew, but you see, like, there's some spoilery frickin' poster somewhere that clearly shows Obi-Wan standing somewhere on Tatooine waiting to have a duel with, it looks like Vader. But I'm not sure if maybe that's not Vader and that's Reva, and she's just going after Luke for whatever reason, to be like, oh, let me get this Force-using boy and use him against Vader somehow. I don't know. And it would be interesting if the showdown was actually between Obi-Wan and Reva and not Obi-Wan and Vader. I don't think that's how it's going to go. I don't know. I will say... the headcanon is strong in this one. In terms of the like writer's room, like, I don't know. I think you've always got these like, well, I think what they were gonna do is this and then this, and I'm like, okay, maybe. I don't really feel that so much, but I do totally agree that's the way they could have gone. And
that's why I changed it to it could have been this way, and I'm glad it was.
Yeah, I'm with you there. 100%.
Yeah, I think at this point the only one the only hill that I will die on in terms of what I think would have happened in the writer's room is, I think that in Rise of Skywalker, it was supposed to be Leia who talks Kylo Ren back into being Ben Solo, but then because Carrie Fisher died, they got Harrison Ford back for it.
Yeah, I don't even think
that's the only one where I'm like, I'm pretty positive that's what happened. Everything else, who the hell knows?
I don't think that's even speculation. I thought that had been confirmed. That like they said, like, yeah, the plan was to have Carrie here, but like she's dead, so we used Harrison instead. Like I'm pretty sure that was actually like explicitly stated, and you're not even, hypothesizing that one. But if not, then like. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm hypothesizing it. It may just be that my hypothesis has been confirmed and I don't know it.
Or you heard the story and forgot you heard the story, and the story confirmed your hypothesis and was,
I'm pretty sure we talked about it.
Yeah, I think.
Oh no, yeah, I've brought it up many times for sure. But anyway, all right. I think it's probably a good place to wrap up. Any of the last comments you all had on the episode?
Nope. I liked it.
I liked it. Give me another one I like. I mean, Mandalorian season 2. I didn't like the first few episodes that much. I loved the conclusion, So, like, yeah, let's do that again. I'm in.
Yeah. Like, I think overall, I want to see where the 6th episode goes, but I think, there are certain movies that I have no interest in watching because they just don't feel like Star Wars to me, like Solo or Rise of Skywalker. There are certain movies, which, by the way, has nothing to do with Rey being a Skywalker. Sure. Shut up, idiot fans who think I just agreed with you. There are some movies that are like, okay, they're good for the Star Wars story, but I don't want to watch them again because they're really painful, like Attack of the Clones. To me, this is neither one of those. It's not the, like, if I really want awesome Star Wars, like, there's maybe 3 or 4 that I'll turn on. Rogue One, Last Jedi, Empire, the whole original trilogy, really. Mando season 1. This isn't at that level, but it's also not like, it's not like I'm mad they made this. I'm glad they made it. It's not the story I would have expected. It has some things that make me raise my eyebrow, but I'm enjoying it. I'm glad that they made it.
Good. Me too.
All right, so where else can we hear both of the things that you all are creating? Or see, not even just hear.
My stuff's pretty simple. Always on the MCU cast. We're the boys is on Pandavision. You guys are doing that. That's it. I don't have a lot going on.
Yeah, and I'm Zen Madman on like all the places, including YouTube. But then I'm also Zen Madman Poker on YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, and of course, I'm the Ethical Panda. You can find all my podcasting at theethicalpanda.com. It has been all Kenobi all the time. We had a couple of other episodes that we're meaning to put up, but on the superhero ethics side of things, we've had some technical problems. We'll be getting those fixed. We do have some other, and I was trying to record an episode this week, and then some. I was not in a great place physically, so I was not able to do that. So this is just going to be kind of a all Kenobi all the time month, but I promise there will be some great superhero ethics stuff coming for you soon as well. So check all that out, and most importantly, give us feedback. We've already done one great feedback episode. We're going to do another one on episodes 4 and 5 with, again, the Hayashis, Riki and Sarah. We've gotten some great questions already, including a Shakespearean comment that I'm really excited to get into. So send in your feedback. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of the episodes. Let us know what you think what we have to say. You can find all that on theethicalpanda.com, our Facebook, our Twitter, our email, all the ways to contact us. So on behalf of myself, Paul, Ashley, thank you all so much. And as fans, be excellent to each other.
The first transport is away.
I knew you were going to say it. I was like, is he going to go?
Bye.
I usually wait for you. I figure you go first. But,